Welcome to a recording of our Junior Cycle History webinar, which was broadcast on Wednesday the 3rd of April 2019. The focus of our webinar was to support teachers in engaging their students in working with evidence to develop the skills of the historian. My name is Anya McAlpine. I'm seconded from St. Louis Community School, Kelchima, County Mayo, and I may have met many of you at our cluster days. In this recording, we're going to look at how a historian works with evidence by visiting an interactive display in Cavan County Museum, created by Dr. Michael Finnegan. He will take us on a walk through history. Before we begin, I'd just like to advise you that we used documents throughout our live broadcast of the webinar. These handouts are also available to you as you engage with this recording. It may be helpful to pause the recording to allow you to download the 4 documents that are located on the link at the bottom of your screen now. We will also be using video clips throughout this recording. So using the same link, you can access these video clips too. Or it may be useful to have the 2 tabs open so you can switch between the recording and the video clips. Before we get started, let's revisit our history specification to put this into context. As you may be aware, the learning outcomes for students in the Junior Cycle History specification are divided into 3 strands. Strand 1, the nature of history, which is a unifying and formational strand. Strand 2 and 3 are the contextual strands, the history of Ireland and the history of Europe and the wider world. Strand 1, which is unifying and formational, has 3 elements: developing historical consciousness, working with evidence, and acquiring the big picture. The learning outcomes from this strand are formational in that they develop in the student the skills of the historian, and they are unifying as they are activated when students are developing skills, knowledge, and values in the contextual strands. One of the ways students engage with these learning outcomes is through working with evidence. Throughout the webinar last week, we were focusing on one element from Strand 1, working with evidence. Let's look at why working with evidence is so fundamental to the study of history. The rationale of the Junior Cycle History specification says the study of history is about exploring human experience over time and how that experience has shaped the world we live in today. How do we go about exploring human experience over time? How do we go about exploring human experience over time? Evidence is like the footprints left behind from human experience over time, and by following these footprints, we can explore the stories of humanity. In this recording, we're going to follow those footprints. To do this, we're going to visit Cavan County Museum, where they have used evidence to create a walk through history, focusing on the key period in Irish history from 1912 to 1916, so that we too can explore human experience over time. So we are learning to develop our understanding of how historians work with evidence. And in order to do this, we need to explore the following questions. What is the value of working with historical evidence? What are the opportunities of and challenges of working with evidence in the junior cycle classroom? Let's take a closer look at what the specification expects our students to be able to demonstrate when working with evidence. Let's take a closer look at the learning outcomes in the working with evidence element of Strand 1. A key question is, what are the skills, the knowledge, the understanding and values that a student should be able to demonstrate having worked with evidence in the junior cycle history classroom? Let's take a moment to explore these 4 learning outcomes. 1.5, 1.6, 1.7,
and 1.8. If evidence is the footprints left behind that show human experiences over time, why not let these learning outcomes guide us as we follow those footprints here? Let's go to visit Dr. Michael Finnegan in Cavan County Museum, who is going to take us on a walk through history and demonstrate different ways of how a historian works with evidence. So a quick reminder here how to access the video clip. The link is there from slide 2 that we mentioned earlier, and this will bring you into the video clips. Or if you have already opened the tab, you'll just switch between the two.
As our historian Michael points out, stories we tell about the past are always based on working with evidence. Likewise, in the new Junior Cycle History specification, students are asked to work with evidence and make rational, informed judgments about human actions in the past, and examine why people were motivated to act as they did and the effects of these actions. We will continue to revisit Cavan County Museum to walk through a pivotal era in Irish history, whilst also developing our understanding of how historians work with evidence.
So again, a quick reminder how to access the video clip. The link is there in slide 2. And again, if you have already opened the second tab, you just switch between the recording and the video clip.
On the night of the webinar, we launched a poll and we asked the question, whose footsteps will you choose to follow? And the results of that poll came in. 47% chose World War I and 53% chose 1916. So let's go and follow the path of 1916. As you can see there, that 47% of the participants chose World War I and 53% chose 1916. So off we go. We're going to see and revisit Dr. Michael Finnegan in Cavan County Museum, and just to remind you, if you would like to use the handout that is used to document the learning outcomes that you would encounter as you engage with this video clip.
So again, just follow your link from slide 2 or switch onto your second tab to access the video clip.
Thanks to Michael and the evidence he used, we were able to experience life in 1916. What is down the other path? The people of 1914 only experienced one path. 47% on the night of the webinar chose a different path, the path of World War I. The power of evidence allows us to look at both of these experiences of the time. So let's now go and walk in the path of those who chose the path of World War I. Quick reminder, don't forget to use the Learning Outcomes handout to document the learning outcomes you encounter as you watch the video clips.
Again, just to access this particular video clip, just follow the link on slide 2 or switch between your tabs from your recording to your video clip.
So what learning outcomes did we encounter? Let's refer back to our handout. Working with evidence, we asked on the night of the webinar for participants to share with us which of these learning outcomes they encountered, as we all observed Michael working with evidence in the museum. So again, we launched a poll here. So we can see the results of the poll that we ran on the night of the webinar and looking at what learning outcomes did participants encounter. And you can see there for yourself that 79% said 1.8, 75% 1.5, 70% 1.7 and 58% 1.6. So as we can see, the learning outcomes from the working with evidence element of the history specification are very much in evidence in the work of the historian, as illustrated by Michael. So our learning intention was to develop our understanding of how historians work with evidence. So we're going to revisit Cavan County Museum and see how Michael creates opportunities of working with evidence and how he uses different types of evidence. And just here again, can I ask you to refer to the document if you did happen to have a chance to download those documents, or if you want to pause this recording and download the document on Francis McCloughy, World War I, as Michael takes us through the opportunities of working with primary source documents. So off we go, and let's revisit Dr. Michael Finnegan.
So once again, to access this video clip, if you just go back to your link on slide 2, or if you have the two tabs open, one with the presentation and one with the videos, you'll see our next video clip, A Historian Works with Evidence.
This brings us full circle, back to the focus of our webinar, which was to develop our understanding of how historians work with evidence, which is one element of Strand 1, the nature of history. However, when you are working with evidence, we are also developing our historical consciousness and acquiring the big picture. We're going to leave you shortly on a reflective note, if you would like to see how Michael brings this together in Cavan County Museum in our next video clip.
So the final video clip to access, again, whether you're following the link on slide 2 or you have your two tabs open, just to switch between the two.
And just before I finish up, I would just like to acknowledge and thank our curator, Savina Donoghue, and all the staff in Cavan County Museum, and of course to Dr. Michael Finnegan. Thank you.